Being Connecticut's news station means we have to give you the best that we can on a daily basis.
If I want to see news, I want it to be straight to the point.
We want it to the point, we want it direct, we want it fair.
I want to know what's happening in the world today.
We have an obligation to make sure we have not only balance in the covering of each individual story, but balance in our newscasts.
I believe we have a responsibility to the people of Connecticut to help make their lives better.
We want people to feel as though when something is going on, they're going to turn to us first.
Channel 3, Connecticut's news station. Now, Eyewitness News Night Beat.
Well, this has been a day of a major upset tonight in one of the most hotly contested primary races in Connecticut.
Voters in Middletown have sent the mayor packing there. It's the big story of this primary day 1997 that featured contests in 45 cities and towns. We begin our Night Beat team coverage with Channel 3's Dennis House, who is live at the headquarters of the winner in Middletown, Dominique Thornton. Dennis?
Well, Denise, good evening. For the second time in 2 years, Middletown Democrats have decided they want change. Remember, in 1995, they voted Mayor Thomas Serra out of office. Tonight, they gave Mayor Maria Madsen-Holzberg the very same treatment. She lost to Dominique Thornton, who will now represent the Democrats in the November election.
Feels great. I'm very happy, obviously delighted. I'm happy for all the people around me.
The Democrats' nominee is 47-year-old councilwoman Dominique Thornton. Middletown's former city attorney defeated Mayor Maria Madsen-Holzberg by a very narrow margin, only 133 votes. 51% to 49%.
The very first voter turnout was the 8th district, which is the opponent's home district. And when I won in that district, I had a very good feeling.
Losing her home turf was the latest in a rough term for the mayor, who did 2 years ago what Thornton did tonight, beat an incumbent mayor in a primary. Since her election, Holzberg has been investigated by the federal government for not hiring minorities. And police, firefighters, and some city workers noisily demanded her resignation a year ago. Still, Holzberg says she's proud of her time in City Hall.
You know, I've had a really good time as mayor over these last 20 months. I think the city's made remarkable progress. A new police station's well on its way to being built, and the Main Street USA program is well established. So I feel good about the accomplishments that my administrations have.
Now, Mayor Holzberg will go down in the record books as being Middletown's first woman mayor in its history, and history will also be made in the November election because Dominique Thornton, it'll be the first all-woman election represented by both major parties. The Republican challenger in this case is Evelyn Russo. Denise, back to you.
All right, Dennis House live on the Night Beat in Middletown.
And now on to some of the other hotly contested primaries around the state. Our next stop is Waterbury, and that's where the race between Republican Mayor Philip Giordano and challenger Andrew Mishaw Jr. erupted into accusations of sexual misconduct and mental incompetence. And Giordano tonight ends up with 85% of the vote. And he says that shows the party's united and that the city will not tolerate a nasty campaign.
Bristol Mayor Frank Nicastro also had no problem winning tonight's Democratic primary. Running on his record of economic development and no tax increases, the two-term incumbent received a whopping 88% of the vote, beating challenger Richard Krasinski, who gave up a job as a financial analyst to be a stay-at-home father.
Another big victory for the incumbent in East Haven, where Mayor Henry Luzzi, whom you see speaking, wins the Democratic primary against former school board member and former campaign worker Oni Siason. The numbers show Luzzi with 74% of the vote tonight. Siason had worked on Luzzi's 1991 campaign, but then had a falling out with the mayor. Another major race in East Hartford. Timothy Larson beats out Treasurer Henry Ginga for the Democratic mayoral nomination with 62% of the vote. The incumbent mayor, Robert DiCrescenzo, is not running for re-election.
And in New York City, with 96% of the precincts reporting, we just got this update. Democratic frontrunner Ruth Messenger has 40% of the vote, followed by activist Al Sharpton with 31%, and Brooklyn City Councilman Sal Albanese with 21%. If Messenger keeps at least 40%, she'll avoid a runoff in 2 weeks. And the winner goes on to face, as you know, Republican Rudolph Giuliani. And the Night Beat has a lot more results for you from today's primaries. We'll have the other mayoral and first selectman races coming up a little bit later in the newscast. In other news, a two-alarm fire tonight in a downtown Hartford office building forces nearly 200 people to evacuate. It started with reports of heavy smoke just after 8 o'clock on the 4th floor of the 9-story building on Main Street. It's reportedly electrical in nature. Firefighters had to cordon off a 3-block area around the scene, and crews are still out there on the scene.
A federal appeals court has upheld Connecticut's version of Megan's Law, which requires that communities be notified when high-risk sex offenders are released in their midst. And no one's happier about today's ruling than one local police chief who's ready to enforce it. Night Beat reporter Jennifer Watson has more. She's live in Enfield tonight. Jennifer.
Al, it is a law designed to protect children and their families, and after a long fight, it's here. Now, part of that fight tonight centers around a convicted sex offender who lives here in Enfield.
The law gives us the authority to be able to disclose where he lives, where he works, and what he has done.
Enfield Police Chief Ronald Marcotte is talking about a decision upheld by a federal appeals court concerning Connecticut's version of Megan's Law. The law is named after New Jersey girl Megan Kankatz, who was killed by a convicted sex offender. It allows authorities to notify neighbors of where those freed offenders live. Attorney General Richard Blumenthal pushed for the law here in Connecticut. The decision comes in the case of a man who lives here in Enfield, identified in a court complaint by the pseudonym Robert Rowe. He filed a lawsuit after probation officials notified this community, including his landlord and his employer, that in 1991, Robert Rowe pleaded no contest to the sexual assault of 6 young boys. He was released from prison after serving 3 years, but was returned until 1995 for violating that probation. Robert Rowe's lawyer says this new law is a double punishment for someone who has already served his time.
A politically popular policy is overriding the rights of individuals.
That's his problem, not mine. Mine is to protect children in this community and the citizens.
Rowe had argued Megan's Law went into effect in 1995 after he was convicted and could not be applied to him retroactively. The federal appeals court disagrees. Gersten has not said whether they're planning to appeal.
It's been a lot of work. It's not over yet, and it's a lot more work to come.
I think it's great. I'm very excited about it, and I can't wait till I get the authority to disclose everyone that we have in this community, because I will.
Now, it was 1 year ago this month that an injunction was issued blocking enforcement of Megan's Law for pre-1995 offenders. Now, Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, who fought to get the decision overturned, says he believes the decision will, quote, help deter offenders from recommitting crimes and provide an incentive for rehabilitation. They're certainly ready to enact it here in Enfield. Al, back to you.
All right, Jennifer Watson live on the Night Beat in Enfield. Thanks.
Connecticut's mosquito management team is responding to reports of mosquitoes carrying the potentially deadly eastern equine encephalitis just over the border in Rhode Island. Governor Rowland plans to discuss the situation tomorrow. Now, last year, you remember the state had planes spraying for mosquitoes, and the problem forced many people to curtail outdoor activities, to rearrange school sports schedules, and to avoid beach areas where the bugs breed.
A compromise in New Haven on the plan to move bus stops away from the new Omni Hotel. City officials say 3 stops will be moved, but they will stay on or near the New Haven Green. The hotel's developer, you see, had demanded that 13 stops be moved, at least 3 blocks, that is, away from the hotel. Mayor John DeStefano says this agreement will preserve the Green as the central bus transfer point. Police in Wethersfield arrest a man on charges of trying to sell a concoction made of pancake mix, crushed aspirin, and cocaine. They say 30-year-old Archie Thornton of Hartford sold the substance to a police informant for $250. A field test found only a trace of cocaine, but that's enough to bring the charges against him.
At the University of Hartford tonight, students gathered for a candlelight vigil to remember the victims of 3 suicide bombings in Jerusalem last week. They prayed and paused for a moment of silence. Tomorrow, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright arrives in Israel to try to revive the peace process.
That vigil under cloudy skies tonight. As we talk about the weather here, the nicest part of the week may have already come and gone.
Get ready for some cooler temperatures, clouds, and rain. Hilton has a first look at Connecticut's most accurate forecast. Hilton?
Denise, Al, tonight's shaping up as a cloudy, mild, and somewhat muggy night. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy weather with the chance of a shower developing by late tomorrow evening. What does the rest of the week look like? We'll have your full 5-day planner shortly. Folks.
Thank you, Hilton. And there is more evidence tonight confirming the driver in the crash that killed Princess Diana was drunk. A third test shows the blood alcohol level of Henri Paul was between 0.175 and 0.182. That's well above the legal limit in France. Europe One Radio reports that traces of antidepressants were also found in his blood. Meanwhile, photos taken minutes before the crash, the ones seized by police, show Paul dazzled by a camera flash, the bodyguard pulling down the sun visor, and Diana looking out the back at a motorcycle headlight.
Investigators in Paris today went back inside the tunnel to reconstruct the accident. The team examined the 13th pillar That's where the car crashed. The spot is still adorned with flowers. It could be months before any charges are filed, and a trial could be years away.
Other stories concerning Princess Diana we're following tonight. Her final resting place is covered with flowers, and her family is asking mourners to stop sending more. Diana is buried at her family's estate in northern England.
America's two largest tabloids, the National Enquirer and Globe, say they will go along with the British media and respect the privacy of the princess's two sons. This as Connecticut supermarkets pledge not to carry tabloids that contain pictures of the Paris accident that killed the princess.
And Princess Diana is appearing in an Asian newspaper ad for Volvos. The ad shows a smiling Diana with the wording, "To all those who value life." A Volvo spokesperson says the company has told the dealer to drop the ad.
A Dallas housing complex for AIDS patients pays tribute to Princess Diana. At yesterday's groundbreaking ceremony, the $1.5 million project unveiled its new name, using her maiden name, Spencer. They call it Spencer Gardens, saying her work, dispelling myths and prejudices, heightened understanding around the world.
Some Connecticut police officers are rolling up their sleeves for a good cause, and we'll show you the reason.
Also on the Night Beat tonight, we have some new tape to show you of violence in a Texas jail, and we'll show you who's being blamed.
A train car explodes 10 years ago, and now there's been a decision on compensation. You might be surprised by the amount.
And see why you may have more of an influence on your child's behavior than you think. But first, we have some more election results from around the state. And we'll have even more results in a few minutes. Stay with us. The Night Beat's coming right back.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News. This is Connecticut's news station.